Okay, ready? New York Public Library, what's up? How's everybody doing? Are you doing good? It's so nice to see you. My name's Jacob. Yeah. And I flew away from London to be here. I flew here yesterday. And it's warm, it's muggy, you say. It's muggy. Sunny, muggy, warm, but delicious, as New York always is. Yeah, it's lovely to be here. And actually, fairly seldom that I get a chance to specifically wax lyrical about music production. I'm asked all sorts of questions, weird questions, but the wonderful world of sort of sculpting sounds and of logic and of the craft of mixing and recording, these are things I care deeply about and things that are for everybody. And so I'm so thrilled to be here and able to sort of talk about that, of all things, today, with all of you, of all people. Excellent. Beautiful. So I've heard it said in the past that when we learn music, we learn all there is to know. And I've been thinking about this recently, and I've come to realize it's true. When we study music, when we make music, when we experience it outward, inward, we are grappling with and wrapping our minds and fingers and beings around a lot of the fundamental forces that make life possible. For example, within music, you find the force of mathematics, you find the force of physics, you find the force of history and geography, and the human spirit and empathy and leadership and language and spelling and syntax and dimensionality and irony and intention and all these amazing things that, as people, we all experience in different ways, but they all exist within music. And so when I was just a wee lad, growing up in the world and looking at the world and listening to the world, I was deeply enamored by the principles that I found in music and how open they were to be explored and to be experimented with. And so a lot of what I did when I was very small was just prod around, you know? What happens if you just, oh dear, you know? And that's where it all starts. The process of just wondering, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I was certainly drawn to the piano at a very small age. And it was around the same time that I was exploring the piano that I was exploring software. So I got, I suppose my first real software was a Casio keyboard. Anyone ever played a Casio keyboard? It's a good vibe, isn't it? It's a great vibe. 200 sounds, 100 rhythms. And that's the whole of music right there. And so I got to traverse all sorts of staircases within, you know, like tubular bells. Wow, never heard those before. Viola, okay, that's interesting. You could say like honky tonk, ooh, you know. And there was even like an ocean sound. It was great. Great. And he was Pit. So great. I think number 127 was helicopter. You know, wow. And so just the ability for my child mind to climb in and realize the possibility of these sounds was endlessly relieving and exciting for me as a young boy. And when I was about 7 years old, I graduated from this Casio keyboard, which I love dearly, I still have in my room at home in London, to Cubase. And I was on... Does anyone use Cubase by any chance? Cubase? Yeah, good, very good. Congratulations. Does anyone use Logic? Oh, Pro Tools, anybody? Okay. Ableton? Whoa, that's a lot. Reaper? Yeah, come on. A Garage Band? What? Oh, that's pretty cool too. Oh, they're all great tools. Voice memos, anyone? Yeah, excellent. So, I sort of hopped ship from Casio keyboard world to Cubase, and I was on Cubase for about 4 years. 4 long years, and then for my 11th birthday, I received Logic, and it was such a moment. And alongside Logic, I received an SM58 microphone. Great microphone. Has anyone ever sung into an SM58? Karaoke candidates unite. It's a really kind of just great microphone. And I was so excited because there was so much that I was hearing inside my brain that I wanted to find a way to get out of my brain. And one of the earliest kind of principles of making and producing and mixing music that I really was drawn to is this idea of making things that you wish existed. You think, what do you wish existed? What do you really most want to listen to right now? make that, you know? And so when I was small, I would listen to all sorts of different kinds of music. So there would be like Stravinsky, and there'd be Stevie Wonder, and there'd be Earth, Wind & Fire, and Joni Mitchell, and there'd be like Bobby McFerrin, and Beck, and Bjork, and Buena Vista Social Club, and all sorts of beautiful things. And I never thought to draw any lines between these worlds. I just thought, well, this is what music is. There's all of this stuff. And the same principle occurred, I think, for me when I started to produce and create music as well. It was like this idea of throwing paint. And I was very drawn to this idea of kind of compound textures, I thought of it as. Like you take one thing and combine it with another thing. And there's a sort of alchemy that happens between the two, like a spark that's created. And a lot of it is to do with your expectation being warped. And expectation warpage has become a deep fascination of mine. And you can do it in so many ways. You can do it sonically, which we'll talk about when we get into logic. But you can do it harmonically, you can do it rhythmically, you can do it melodically, you can do it lyrically, you can do it with your body language on stage. You know, there's so many ways of, yeah. There are so many ways of playing with just like playing with the delight of people's inner worlds. But to go back to what I said at the beginning, it's like all the forces that play are the forces that drive all of us as people to expand and explore and explain ourselves and things. And so I was just hooked. I was absolutely hooked at age 11. I spent every living moment that I could when I wasn't at school in this canvas world. And one of the first things I was deeply drawn to was this idea of vocal harmony. I loved this. I still do, actually. You record a voice, another voice, another voice, another voice, and you create these kind of towering structures of chords. Anyone here like chords, by any chance? Does anyone not like chords? No, fair enough. Yeah, but to me, as a singer, I had my deftest brush stroke when I would sing all the notes in a chord, and the feeling of being a note in a chord is a feeling I can't overestimate. It's like an extraordinary thing. For example, can you sing an E? Okay, keep singing the E, and I'll put you in a few different contexts, and let me know how you feel. Yeah? In fact, you can do ah if you want to. Ah. Delightful, thank you very much. So, the feeling you experienced there and I experienced there was of modulating where you stand in a harmonic context, in an environment. So when you were singing, I think that was my favourite moment. Wow, what an amazing feeling. And then becoming is lovely, isn't it? Isn't that lovely? It feels like life. It feels like, it feels like turning a corner. And these forces, I chase these down, I hound them, I seek them, I mine for them, musically. And so, what happened when I got really into Logic is I would transfer some of my pianistic harmonic experiments into the human voice, first of all, into Logic, and I'd start to paint what that felt like, and it was a joy. It was really an exciting premise. Even, for example, that the simple realization that you can double track, or triple track, or quadruple track each individual note, depending on how important the note is in the chord. When I say double track and triple track, do you know what I mean? So, for those who don't, or who want it to be clarified, if I record one note in, I might want to double track that and record a second on top. And what happens there is like a lovely sort of phasing and like a joint of, and then triple, quadruple, quintuple, sextuple, etc. And you can make massive sounds out of just layering voices. And I just became obsessed basically with this. And I eventually, sort of about 10 to 15 years later, would begin to create these like 25 track notes with like many notes. So you'd have like 120 voices and it just goes bang like a church organ, you know, and it's amazing. Another thing I became enamored with the human voice is that you could go anywhere you wanted to with tuning. You didn't have to be locked into, say, these 12 notes on the piano, which is it's certainly a limitation. In case anyone here doesn't know, basically, about 500 years ago, it was kind of decided en masse that the best way to divide an octave, this is an octave, was into 12 equal parts, like this. And the concept was if you do this in this way, you can create all sorts of motion and modulation and things like that, where all keys are equal. But in physics, that's not the way that it is. And in all of your mouths at this very moment is the harmonic series, and I'll demonstrate this. Like, have you ever done this? Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And do you hear those tiny little notes? It just keeps going, right? This is what's known as the overtone series, the harmonic series. In every sound or note in nature, you have these overtones, and there are there's an infinite number of overtones, and discovering how they fit together and how they're tuned is at the heart of a lot of my favorite harmony. And you could argue that the reason why we have such a sound as major and minor is because within the harmonic series are those relationships kind of inherently. And so with the voice, you can climb up into the overtones and way past the piano. The piano's like quite low res, you could say. It's like having like an 8-bit screen. It's like you can get a certain distance, but even between like ma and ma, there are so many notes. I'll demonstrate. So ma da, right? Na da da, na da da da, na da 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 da. I could keep going, right? But you can chop any distance into any number you want and dig out all sorts of crazy, like cavernous key centers with your voice. You don't have to play the piano. You can do it with your voice. But I wouldn't have discovered this if I hadn't had my canvas of logic to experiment with, you know. And you take one note that's a bit out of tune, and then you modulate to that note, and then within that there's something that's out of tune, and then you modulate to that note. You can go into what I like to describe as cross-terrain modulation. That's the term I gave it, where you essentially exit the sort of safeguard of the piano and go wherever you please. And so just the freedom that's granted to one who is reflected back on oneself in a recording environment is astonishingly powerful and deep and great. So yeah, that's what I'd say. That's what I just did say that. I've loaded for you and for me a Logic session that I created on this laptop here, and it's a song. I wrote a song called Little Blue, and thank you. And Little Blue is a song that's on Jessie Volume 4, which is an album that came out back in March. It was kind of like right exactly between February and March. And it's a really special song. In fact, I might just sing it for you, and then we can talk about the production. But before I do this, just a quick sort of story about the song. So some songs you write very quickly, and they just fall out, and they go, oh, thank you very much, done. This song it was no such song. I wrote the verse to this song back in 2020, and I wrote the verse very quickly. It was one of these verses that, I like this. Little blue, be my shelter, cradle, be my... And it just flowed out. It was lovely. And then I thought, okay, great. Now I'll write the chorus. And that was not trivial. And it took me about 3.5 years to finish it. I tried so many choruses, so many. And I can play you some of the ones that didn't make the song. And the critical realization I found with the chorus of this song was, sometimes when we write music, often, the chorus sort of gets bigger than the verse. You have a verse, great, and then the chorus, and then back to the verse, and the chorus. But what I didn't realize this song needed was actually a chorus that was even smaller than the verse. And sometimes that's life, you know. And so I was walking back from the dentist one day, and I began to sing this chorus. Don't be afraid of the dark in your heart. You're going to find a way. Carry away the way. And I thought this is nice. I didn't think about it for Little Blue at all. I sort of thought about it in its own right, or maybe for a different song. And then later that day, or maybe the following day, it just clicked. And I thought, hang on, this is my little blue chorus. And that was such a relief for me. But this song came on such a journey in its being crafted. And I'll play it for you now. If you know it, you may sing along, if you would like to. Okay, ready? Little blue, be my shelter, be my cradle, be my womb, be my boat, be my river, be the stillness of the moon. If I could, I'd go with you to a place I never knew. In your eyes, so dark and open, there's a light that leads me back to you. 'Cause you're not so far away. I hear you say you'll never walk alone. Singing, don't be afraid of the dark. Sing it loud. In your heart, yeah. You're gonna find a way to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're gonna find a way home. Little blue, be my anchor, be my light, my compass star, be my darkness, oh darkness, be my danger, be the strings of my guitar. that leads me back to you. 'Cause you're not so far away. I hear you say you'll never walk alone. Singing, don't be afraid of the dark in your heart. You're gonna find a way to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Gonna find a way. Don't be afraid of the light. It's alright now. You're gonna find a way to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're gonna find a way. Sing it again. Find your way. One more time. Find your Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you. You sounded beautiful. Really lovely. So that's Little Blue. And now we shall dive in to Little Blue. Logic Edition. So, in fact, Jose, can we switch to the headset now?
Thank you, bro. Hey, yes. Okay. So, welcome home. It's your new home. We have a track count today of 635, which is actually not so bad. It's all right. It's middle of the road. And yeah. So most of these tracks that you see here are in fact folders of additional tracks. Yes, indeed. Oh yeah, I forgot to say actually. If you have a question, you can always just ask. You can always just ask the question. But maybe before we really get into the questions, I'll give you a brief overview. In fact, the best way to give you an overview is I'll just press play. There you go.
Little blue, be my shelter, be my cradle, be my womb, be my bow.
There he is.
Be my river, be the stillness of the moon. If I could, I'd go with you to a place I never knew. In your eyes, so dark and open, there's a light that leads me back to you. 'Cause you're not so far away, I hear. Singing, don't be afraid of the dark in your heart. You're gonna find a way to carry the weight of your shoulders. You're gonna find a way.
Okay, we'll stop there for now, eh? So where to begin? There are so many sounds here, and when it comes to having lots of sounds at the same time, which is a position I somehow always find myself in. The trick really it comes down to balancing forces, and arcs of different lengths. I think about this a great deal. You have the arc of the song, you have the arc of the verse, you have the arc of the phrase, you have the arc of the note, the arc of the word. You have arcs that go down, you have arcs that go over the top, you have arcs that go through, long arcs, short arcs, and you have arcs within words, you have arcs within chords, and arcs within time. There's so many different kinds of arcs, man. And I think much as I would like to sit here and say, well, I did all of this on purpose, I would genuinely say that I did it, that the way I tend to mix things is very intuitive. However, it's possible, I think, to have a high resolution imagination and be conscious of that, but also still to be intuitive. And I think one thing that I often hear is, but Jacob, how is it possible to make music that's both emotional and technical at the same time? How is this done? And it's a funny question, because I feel like I never really consider these two things as to being at odds with each other. Everybody has a language, no matter how conscious they are of their language. You operate within a language, and you learn language by gathering from all around your life. And music is one language I deeply enjoy, and I think that when I enter into a state of making music, the last thing I'm thinking is, right, like I'm gonna deliberately make people feel like this, or this is the reason why I'm making the song, or I'm gonna prove this element of the song. It's much more about, well, what decisions could I make that make this song more itself? And that's a good way of measuring many things, actually, in life. It's not, is it good, or is it bad, or is it big, or is it small, or is it relevant, or is it valuable, or is it itself? Because something that's deeply itself has like a sort of incandescence naturally to it that shines, and it illuminates the things that render it necessary in the world. Like things find the things that they're meant to find if they are themselves. But the moment you make something that's trying to be many things, or trying to be something that's not itself, sometimes that sort of like opalescence can be obscured. And so often when I make a song, the art of it really is to discover what about this makes this. And you could say the same thing is true for any human. Sometimes I'm asked, Jacob, how does one find one's musical voice? And I would answer by saying, well, it's already there. You kind of have to just remove what's not you, because it's all there. You're already there. But the way I approach production, songwriting, mixing, all these things often is the most important thing at first is not to reject any ideas. You shouldn't not put something on the page because you're worried it might be weird or wrong or bad or strange. The moment you start considering your choices as kind of like judged as good or bad, for me personally, I find my ideas start drying up, because you get a bit sort of curtailed by all the options and all the structures. And so often when I make a song, I'll put loads in the song that doesn't end up being the song in the end, but it all needed to come out for me then to be able to remove the things I felt weren't necessary. But only through the expulsion of these ideas was I able to actually discover what the elements are. And if I hadn't let all the ideas fly, then I wouldn't be in such a position. I wouldn't know what it is, And so there's a conscious process of kind of I like to think of it as like paint throwing. And then there's the process of being like, okay, so what is this at its most like rooted? What is this I'm trying to say? And then you kind of sculpt with the things you have, and some of those things you won't need for the song, or you could say that you did need them, but they won't be necessary for the final version. And so, I think it's important to say that, first of all, a lot of the processes that I will describe may appear like they were consciously done for a reason, but the truth of the matter is I noticed myself doing them a lot of the time, and looking back at Logic sessions, I'm always kind of surprised. I think, oh gosh, I did that, and it's like almost like I'm sitting in my own audience watching as well. I don't know what's going to happen. My job is to let the thing happen and see, So anyway, I guess to start at the beginning, here's some tape hiss. Isn't that great? I'll just turn that up a bit. Hugely underrated to me, tape hiss. It's the difference between like air in the room and no air in the room. And you want air in your room, sometimes. It just depends on the story you want to tell. But this here, this was the root of the verse. This was where it all began. Was this sound? And this sound is called lift your head _ merged 1 bip 116, and that's because lift your head was a different song. Oh, how do I get to find it? Here we are. Avert your eyes. Oh gosh, I don't even know if it's going to be in this folder, but let's have a look. Oh no. Okay, I'll get to the overview conversation in a little while, but maybe lift your head's not. That's fine. Yeah, Little Head was a song. It's like an idea for a song that I wrote, which sort of went like, it was in D flat. It went, lift your head above the sea, show you what you are to me. If you tell the truth to me, then and that's what I had for it. And I kind of liked it, and maybe I'll finish it one day. Don't steal it. But this sound was at the heart of it. And I'm a sucker for a drone. I don't know about you. If something's just repeating and constant, I'm like, yes. And everything starts flowing. Because it's a bit like what we did earlier when you sang that E. You can go. You can go anywhere. It's like, you know, and so I nooked it up to E flat. So I thought this song needs to be in E flat. It's one of those songs, and I liked where it sat in my voice. Little Blue feels like a sweet part of my voice, and so everything kind of came from there. And what I did at first, I think I had these guitars going here. And that just felt like a nice place to start. And what are these dots here? What's this? Oh yeah. That's actually a balalaika, which I have in my house. Do you guys have balalaikas? Oh yeah. I think this actually is the old balalaika F sharp. And yeah. Sounds a bit weird. But anyway, that was the thing. You know, so that went round, and then I sort of EQ'd that here, as you can see, and it made this it's like a womb, you know, literally like a womb. It's like you're within this lovely thing, which is again a repeating pattern, but it's not 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. It's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, which is it's the nice thing about sevens are that they amble constantly in a new way. So at no point in this verse do you have the same undercurrent going through it. Oh, it's 5. Sorry, my bad. So that just runs right through. If I take off the EQ, that's the balalaika. Back underwater. So yeah, that's the heart. I'm going to mute old balalaika. Go away. And what else do we have? There's not much else. There is this electric piano here, which is kind of doing the same thing as the guitar. And that's just like the Logic electric piano, like default sound, which is great. And I use it all the time. Haters gonna hate, but. So that was the warmth of the thing. And a lot of these things I recorded thinking, oh, this is just a demo, you know. And later down the line, I'll do the real thing. No such new thing was necessary, because I had what I needed. And so then halfway through this verse, there are a few additional elements that sort of join the fray. If I could, I'd go with you. One of these is in fact a Grammy. I actually played a Grammy of mine for my sins. And this is the sound. I don't know anything else that sounds like this. So, but basically, I like muting and unmuting it. It's nice, isn't it? It's a good sound. In fact, it's the Grammy for all I need, for all night long. So there you go. And I've used this sound a few times. I return to it because it's like a very delicate sort of go-go bell. And so that's one thing that comes in. It just like adds a bit of high end to the momentum, because the momentum's in the middle right now. But the things I really, mainly what I do in this verse is I add high end and then low end. And it just sort of goes like, it's like your experience just like increases and gets dimensional. And there's also this heartbeat here, which is some of the low end. Which is just great. My kick sounds, I do love battery. I don't know how many of you love battery, but oh dear. I think I can actually, let's see if it finds it. Hey, it did. It's one of those rare occasions. So yeah, I have a lot of just custom-made battery sounds that I've made myself just based off samples I found and all sorts of things. In fact, I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm gonna duplicate the track, isn't it? And then, yeah. So these are all my different kicks, and kick 1 is my favorite. Oh, isn't that great? it really just it does the trick. So yeah, that's the one I used for this, and yeah, I've got all sorts of interesting, since we're here, I've got all sorts of interesting libraries like Glass. All right, let me turn off the transient shaper. It's good, isn't it? And then gongs, of course. Oh, no, I'll skip that one. So that's really good. It's like a weird, like buffering squeaking, isn't it? Do you hear that, Ben? I don't know what's going on with that. Oh well. Yeah, I can't tell either. No, it's fine. It's so focused. Okay, no coverage. Guns, of course. Sometimes they just come in handy. Got all sorts of different rims here. And so yeah, some of these sounds I record myself. A lot of them are just from various sample libraries I've come across over the years, and some of them are quite textural. Like these are just wooden sounds. Oh, and swords. Honestly, swords are great. Like little joust here and there. There's no one any harm. Anyway, that was a total digression. I've also got the sub bass has entered the fray here as well. And I ride these dynamics. Oh, what's the shortcut for this? Aha, yeah. So it's sort of carefully ridden here. If I could, I'd go with you. And again, it's just about shape, isn't it? It's about arcs. So rather than like do 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 do, it's more like it's lovely. So that's the low end. A little bit of a shaker here. Yeah, innocent enough. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, there's this thing, Hocket. Yeah. I don't know how many of you know about hocketing, but hocketing's lovely. It's a great thing to do. It's like you divide a melody between multiple voices. It's really fun if you do it with multiple people, like you, and you go, this kind of thing, and it adds. It's almost like a sort of Steve Reichian, this kind of thing. To a place I never knew. So there's that, and if my ears don't mistake, if I'm not mistaking my ears, there are also some guitar fills. Maybe they're baked into this. Yeah, just a little bit of decoration here and there. So like there really aren't. There's not a huge amount going on here, but there's a lot of space. But it's just about detail and sensitivity and vibraphones, which is actually a lovely element there. So that's kind of the verse, and then there's the Jacob of it all, and some of you might be wondering, well, what do I do to my voice to make it sound like this? And the first thing to say is I have a microphone. I do have a microphone, and it's a U87 Neumann microphone, but within it is a capsule, which is actually more like a U47 capsule. Is that right, Ben? Where's Ben? Is he at the back? Yeah. So it's a custom-made capsule which behaves like a 47, but it's within an 87. So it has the brightness of an 87, but the sort of like richness of the 47, which is an extraordinary gift. And it was a microphone guru named Klaus Hein, who lives in Portland, Oregon. He built it for me. He heard me sing and said, I think I know what you need. And I thought, really? And then he gave me the microphone. I was blown away, absolutely blown away. However, the microphone inherently doesn't have a huge amount of natural high end. It's not like a normal 87. So a lot of the high end I use EQ for. This EQ here is rather involved. And to give credit where credit's due, Ben, who is the man I've often referred to throughout this masterclass, he's like a vocal EQ guru. And so there he is. And he really, really helped with this. So many of these notches are Ben's. But as you can see, there's an amount of a high end that's going on up here. The neutron exciter is also just like pretty undefeated, and every time I do any vocals, I pretty much always use the exciter and the equalizer from neutron 4 as it currently is. There are many neutrons, but 4 is the top one. It's the best. There's a little bit of compression too, and so the rest is kind of just the microphone doing the talking and me, I suppose.
If I could, I'd go with you.
So that's that. Soothe. Anyone use Soothe here? It's crazy, isn't it? It's really something. Soothe has this kind of impossible superpower of sort of taming nasty high mids and high end. It just makes everything like gluey and transparent, and it's especially amazing for orchestra. Actually, it's insane. But for this, it's like any high end or even like the S's and things, they get beautifully tamed by Soothe. And this is the sort of frequency band. So yeah, around like 4-5K. That's the top of the tree that's being soothed. RX de-esser. I'm basically just a huge fan of isotope plugins in general. I think they're just incredibly great. So Neutron is an isotope plugin, as is RX10. And so yeah, this is just de-essing my voice basically. And everyone has a different sort of threshold of de-essing that works for them. Fast works for me. So that's good. And then there's this UAD plugin. And UAD plugins are slightly newer in my imagination, but yeah, it glues it together, adds a little bit of high end. It creates just a like subtle texture, and is nice just like as a final glue. And then I also am sending this vocal to a delay, and indeed a reverb. And the reverb is Altiverb. I don't know how many of you use Altiverb. It's just an astoundingly realistic kind of emulator of real life spaces and beyond. But this is the EMT250 kind of preset, which is really, really good. And I often use it for voice because it's not super long. It's just kind of rounded and capacious in a delightful way. And so that, yeah. And I've actually, looks like here we've de-essed it before the reverb because you don't want the reverb to go and take over. And then there's also some EQ after the reverb, basically getting rid of the low end. Because you don't really want, sorry, I'll keep that up for a tiny bit longer so you can see it. Yeah, so because you don't really want the reverb to be going, not really. And then the delay, I'm yet to find a substitute for Echo Boy. I'm sure some of you know Sound Voice plugins, but they're really, really good. And often what I'll do is I'll set it to dual echo mode, which means that rather than it just going, there are two different echoes that are sort of left and right. And so I've got one doing an eighth note and one doing an eighth note triplet. So it sort of goes. So it's kind of like, it's just stereo-y and nice. So if you listen closely, you can hear those things at play.
If I could, I'd go with you.
That's if I turn it right up.
To a place I never knew.
Yeah. So that's that. That's basically the voice. That's the whole deal. And yeah, if I unhide the hidden tracks, these are all the takes that I didn't use. So I really wanted to make sure every note of this phrase was just pristine and good. So that's what I did. I'll re-hide those again. So yeah, that's essentially the verse. We've got as far as the verse. Little bits and pieces of little bits of BVs, just to colour things in. It's like such a nice little crayon you can pick up if you need to, just to be like.
If I could,
See there?
I go with you to a
It's like
place
the energy that's created from the main lyric, lead vocal, is just carried slightly further by being transferred from voice to backing vocal, and it's like you've got the counterparts that say, "I've got you, yeah, keep going, keep it going." It's like your friends, you know. And so I mean I always come back to voices because they just are so emotional. They're always emotional and always helpful, and the voice can do so many things. And when I was a child, I used to just stretch my voice into all these different characters. So you can be like really like a sine wave, like which can be really like direct, and you can also be and be more of a like illustrious, breathy paintbrush, or like whoa if you want to get like proper chesty. You can go so many places with this, but yeah, these are just tiny little bits of crayoning under the lead vocal. Yeah, like that's one word I wanted to harmonize it.
there's a light.
So it's a little bit of company, which is nice. And I like to think of some of these elements as you don't hear them, but you feel them. You feel them there, and even though you can't point it out and say, this has entered the frame, it's like your emotional experience is still yet guided by them, by their presence, whether it's a harmonic thing or an emphasis thing or whatever. It's like you're painting a picture and you have your foreground characters, but what's happening in the background, the shading and the shadows and the way the light falls and the texture of the leaves, like those things, while you don't necessarily pay attention to them straight away, it makes such a difference in just the believability of your image. So that's that. And then in this bridge, this is where I sort of like dug in and did my favorite thing in the world to do, which is this. And so there's lots of high end on those because I really wanted them to be. Oh, this one's Neutron 3. It's slightly older part of the session, I guess. Yeah, look at that, hefty. You can ski down there. Yeah, this does what no other instrument I've ever found can do, which is just paint the harmony, basically. So like this is my harmony sort of describer in this section. If I mute these voices, there's not that much going on actually.
So far away, I hear you
I know.
say.
It's like really it's the tide, it's the ocean. And if you listen as well, you can hear that when I do vibrato, the vibrato is often kind of choicefully timed. So it might be like, a lot of the time I don't sing with lots of vibrato because you can't hear the note, but there's a little bit here. There, you see? And it's just like, it just frills it out, makes it more textual, more landing. So that's nice. And then underneath you've got these little bits of sort of climbing creatures. Dulcitone here, this is the thing. This is a Spectrasonics patch, I believe. Here it is. Come on. Omnisphere. Anyone use Omnisphere here? Any chance? Yeah, Omnisphere is wonderful. It's such a lovely. So this is like a deliciously sampled dulcitone. One of these instruments I had never heard of until I got the Keyscape plugin, but it sounds great. And I played this in on my MIDI keyboard. It sounds like this. I do not know what happened there. That was really interesting. Anyway, yeah, and I bounced that down so it's all safe and sound. So that's nice. And then I think there's one other thing which is just guitars. Yeah, here they are. And these are all hidden, it seems, but I'm going to unhide them. Oh. And let's power them up. So I record my guitars into usually it's like a matched pair of Mojave microphones. Like they're great for stringed instruments, great for percussion instruments. There's lots of really clear high end. And my first album I ever made was called In My Room, and I made In My Room with essentially only mono microphones that I panned manually around. So I'd record every single sound, other than the drums, which I had like a pair of something on the top. I did everything with essentially a mono microphone, and then I'd pan them around. And then once I started the Jesse process, I began to fall in love with recording things naturally in stereo. So rather than panning something left and recording it mono and panning it left, you get two microphones which act as left and right, and then you can manually pan them physically by saying, okay, I'm going to pan this one to the left, or I'm going to pan this one to the right. And the believability of the space you create increases drastically. So that was definitely like a really interesting thing for me to learn. Here we go. So yeah, here's the Mojaves, and then this is actually that looks mono. Maybe I did a DI in. Doesn't sound like a DI. That's the Mojaves though. Maybe it's my 87. I'm not sure. And it's being a bit sluggish loading these things up, but you get the drill. So these are guitar tracks, which is very cool. I'm going to go ahead and hide those again because we do not need you anymore.
Do you remember what guitar you were playing for that?
It's a good question. I think I was probably playing. So nowadays I play a 5-string guitar. But this was before I got the 5-string guitar, and so I was playing a 6-string guitar, which I bullied into being 5-string adjacent, which I believe was a Takamine guitar, and I think I probably tuned it something like do 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 do. I think that was my solution at the time. And the 5-string guitar is that's the 5-string guitar. So yeah, if I had the guitar here, I could show you, but. It's essentially like a fifth based tuning. My first guitar I ever received was a tenor guitar. It's like a 4-string folk guitar. I walked into a shop age 17 and just like, my jaw just dropped. What's that? And I went up and played it and I thought, this is for me. And so I bought, that was like one of the first instruments I bought for myself. And it was so exciting. And then I started to conform 6 strings into being a bit like 4 strings, and then eventually 5 strings. And then one day I called up Taylor. I said, Taylor, can you please just make me a 5-string guitar? I know it's a long shot. And they actually said yes. So then they made me a 5-string guitar, which I've been playing on tour for the last 2.5 years. And then there was an electric version of the guitar made by Strandberg, which is also really fun to play. But this was back in the day when I wished I had a 5-string guitar, but it was in fact a 6-string guitar. But yeah, the thing with that is it's very much open tuning. It's like lots of fifths and nothing fourthsy or thirdsy. None of that. So this is the bridge then, overarchingly.
So far away, I hear you sing.
And I'm sure you were wondering why did I put this gong here, and that's why.
'Cause you're not so
It's just a widening, you know.
away, I hear you sing. You'll never walk alone. Singing, don't be afraid of the dark.
So the chorus is all about this, you know, the dark in your heart, of course, and you combine that with the heartbeat, and you get a pretty emotive sort of state. You know, it's literally dark heart. You know, I really wanted to describe this accurately, and this is the first time I played the bass. Anyone here play the bass? Nice. I play like a Hofner violin bass, like the sort of Paul McCartney bass, which I really, really adore. And this was actually the first time I'd ever played it, was when I was recording for this song. Nice round notes, you know. I don't normally put reverb on my bass, but I did for this chorus, and it's Valhalla, ladies and gentlemen, Valhalla. So that's the thing. And with the lead vocal here, I did a thing, which I sometimes do when I do things. And the thing that I did in this case, was recorded my lead vocal. In fact, I recorded this lead vocal in a rush because I had to leave the house. I think I had to take a plane or something. And it was like, oh, I just want to get a rough take of this chorus so I can listen to it on the plane and like think about whether I'm good at music or not. And so this was just like a really rough take of the thing, which I just bounced quickly, and I loved it, and I sort of kept it. And that's what this sounds like.
Don't be afraid of the dark in your heart. You're gonna find a way.
And then the thing that I mentioned, the aforementioned thing that I did, was the thing something I like to call droiding, which is a nice one. You guys should steal this. Droiding is when you essentially transpose up the exact same audio file. It's the same audio file, and I've just put up 12 semitones, which is an octave, and I've hard panned them. But if you do that without messing with, if you just do that by itself, then this is what it sounds like, which just sounds pretty silly. So I use Little Altar Boy. Again, it's a Sound Toys favorite to lower the formant, and the formant is the word you give to. It's almost like the gender of the vocal. It's like, it's like, you can be really like this, or you can be really like this, you know? And so because it was 12 semitones worth of formant stretched up, it sounds like Alvin. Not Alvin the bass in take 6, the opposite, Alvin the chipmunk. I don't know. Anyway, so this is what you get, sort of like a balanced. It's really interesting. Yeah.
I'm just curious about your process.
Yeah. It's fun. I'm definitely a creature of habit. So when I find something I like, I'm just like, that'll do forever. Until someone says, that's really inefficient, So Little Altar Boy I've used for 6 or 7 years. Someone told me you should get Sound Toys, and I believed them, whoever they were. And so I got Sound Toys, and it turns out it was a great decision, and you all too should get Sound Toys. And the delay that I mentioned earlier, Echo Boy, that's also Sound Toys, and so is this. And there's a bunch of other really good ones. There's the Crystallizer, which I really love. There's the Filter Freak, which I really love. There's the Devil Lock, which I use all the time, like a distortion one. But this is really, really good for format. Like, I'll show you what it does when I. See, that's me changing the format. So like, this is too low here. So you want something in the middle. So that's where I ended up. And I actually did the left and right, I did slightly different so that it wouldn't sound mono, it would sound like slightly stereoized. So I had a different format here of, interesting. So I did here, with this one, I transposed this up an octave using flex in Logic. You know how you, on the top hand corner, you can type in a number of transpose and you can do it there. So with this one, I did that here. But in order to make the one on the right sound different, because it's the same audio file, it sounds different as possible to sound the most stereo, I actually did it natively in Little Altar Boy. I put the pitch up 12 here in the plugin, and then the formant I also changed here, so it goes up 5 instead of down 5. So it's like a different algorithm to achieve the same result. And so, yeah, so it sounds like slightly different characters when you combine them. It just has this ghostly presence. And there, again, it's one of these feel but don't hear things. It's pretty buried in the mix.
Don't be afraid of the dark.
But it feels like you've met a new character.
In your heart, you're gonna find.
And it's almost like this is like as a songwriting point. This is like it's a mantra, isn't it? It's like something that you speak to yourself, or that is spoken to you by a great comforter, And so this idea of don't be afraid of the dark, you're going to find your way to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, you're going to find a way home. And so it's almost like this it's almost like an otherworldly character, which is also inherently kind of you, because you do know your way, but sometimes you have to be reminded. So that was a bit of the sort of like emotional state that I was going for here, or noticed I was going for in retrospect, more like. And yeah, let me see whether this is turned on. No, it's not. No, it's not. Do you know Lennon Stella? Anybody? Lennon Stella? Yeah, Lennon Stella sang some BVs on this song. Not there. That was I ended up being muted. But she comes in later on, and she has a beautiful voice, like a really ephemeral, just sensitive, gorgeous voice. It's lovely. So That's literally the chorus. That's everything in the chorus, except for one key ingredient. And the key ingredient is the audience choir. So, how many of you has anyone ever been to a Jacob show before? Yeah. Oh, great. Did you sing in the audience choir? Oh, yeah. Should we do a quick one now? So, I'll show you what I did. For Little Blue, I was quite cheeky. Well, it's not that cheeky. That's a little bit. So I was on tour, and I was in the world touring, and I had this song, Little Blue, and I thought, I really want some BVs, but not just like, ooh, kind of BVs, but like colossal, human, massive BVs. And I thought, well, I could probably do it with the audience choir, but I don't want to tell them that I've got a new song coming out yet, so I'll keep it secret. So instead, I just conducted them, with the song in my head playing. So I played the chords live and incorporated it into something else in the show. Then I went home and I dragged it into my session, and it was great. And I then made a plugin out of audience choir voices, which some of you may have. Does anybody have that plugin? I can show it to you later. But I fashioned together like a whole bunch of cities from the tour, and it's a free plugin. It's just available for free on Native Instruments, and yeah. But this was like the root of it. And so what I did on stage was essentially, if I divide here down the middle here, and maybe just like this row as well. So like middle. Actually, no. You guys be a row, and then row. Yeah. So audience choir. Yeah. Very good. Superb. So, marvelous. In the New York Public Library, of all places. Very good. So, the lovely thing about you, audiences, are that there's ever-expanding and possible combinations of... It's like a massive instrument you can play. And so what I essentially did for Little Blue was something to the effect of... if I just, so if I go, ooh, 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 ooh. So, yeah, so, don't be afraid of the dark in your eye. You're gonna find a way to carry away. On your shoulders, you're gonna find a way, find a way. Let's stop there. Yeah. So the idea was, I had the song going in my head. I recorded audiences singing these parts, and I'll play the recordings because they sound amazing. And the eventual places I used were Vienna, Austria, Brisbane, Australia, and Sydney, Australia. They were the three best. I would say the three best in E flat, because I did audience choirs in all sorts of keys. And sometimes I didn't plan what key the audience choir was going to be in. In fact, most of the time I didn't. And I would just get to the end of a song, and I'd be going, and then I would just go, ah, 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 ah. And then a chord would hang in the air, supposedly, that would all those notes. And that would be the key we'd be in. So, and I constantly change keys. It's a really bad habit. It's like a psychotic key changing something that a condition. But yeah, just these were the shows I ended up in E flat essentially. And then I remember in Sydney I did deliberately do the Little Blue chord sequence because I knew I wanted to get something. But yeah, so. The way that sounds, in fact, it sounds, the best way to describe this is the second chorus, which is here, Vienna. Yeah, this is called Vienna Audience, but in fact it's not only Vienna, it's other places too. And this is the sound of it. Ignore the crackling. The audience. So we have, and Ben, you can maybe even talk to this best, but we have a number of ambient mics. It ranges depending on the size of the venue. We have normally between 4 and 8 ambient mics. So normally have 2 on the stage facing the audience. And for big venues, like in Sydney, because it was a beautiful venue and I knew I wanted to do audience, I knew it would sound good because Sydney always sound good. It's like a guarantee. So we actually had ambient mics towards the back of the room too, just to have all the different options. And but the amazing thing about the audience is it sounds amazing just through a phone mic as well. So I think some of this is even just done through a phone, because if you just film through a phone, the compression, it's all there. The only thing is it's mono, and so the ambient mics are great for when you want it to be really stereo. But yeah, we recorded every audience of that year, 2022. And I still record every show just for archive anyway. But since we're here, I'll show you the plugin. I think it's on here. Oh really? Oh, this is because that's right. Okay. Actually, you have native instruments. Let's try. We can even just download it now if it's not, because it's quite pretty small. It's free. But yeah, I'll show you how we did it, Jacob. Collier. Oh, it is a prototype. Oh no. Okay, maybe this isn't the best way to do this. Oh, it's kind of there. This is kind of the plugin. Okay. So these are all the cities that I used in the end. These are like the rooms with the lowest aircon noises and the best tuning and blah, blah, blah. And you can literally go home and do this like today. This is a free instrument. And let me just put this a bit higher. There you go. And the cool thing about this instrument is you can change the vowel sound. So I had to do like an Olympic amount of planning to make sure I essentially covered every major and minor triad on all 4 vowel sounds without telling them. But I pretty much did it. And then there were a few shows at the end of the tour where I actually said, like, okay, guys, got to be honest, I'm making an instrument that's for you for free, and I'd love for you to literally, can you just sing F sharp on an E, please? And then so it like filled in the gaps. But it's fun. And then there's also some percussion sounds. Oh no, these are like just triads. These are raw triads. There's some really cute animations as well. And yeah, stomps, snaps, bing, yeah, maybe, no, bonk, clap. Yeah, I use these claps all the time, and you can too. They're really, yeah, they're just like proper, claps, like en masse. I think these claps are pretty much Copenhagen only. We played in this venue called Vega, Copenhagen, and it had this hollow floor. And it wasn't a huge venue, it was quite small. It's like 1,500. And so the floor was just like, whoom, and it was just sounding literally that. And I remember I came off stage and I was just like, that's my stomp. I got the stomp. Yes. But yeah, so that's the sort of magic of Audience Choir. However, I didn't use the Audience Choir instrument in this song, in Little Blue, because it hadn't been made yet. So I did it manually. But I was so moved by the incorporation of these 10,000 or so people in my song. It made me weep when I was making the song, because just the feeling of all these strangers just lifting Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. It's beautiful. It's so special. And I feel really, really lucky.
Don't be afraid of the dark in your heart. You're gonna find a way to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're gonna find a way. Don't be afraid of the light. It's alright. You're gonna find your way to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're gonna find your way home.
So that's the thing. And in the first chorus, you do hear the Audience Choir, but it's filtered, it's like underwater. This is the first chorus Audience Choir, which is also really special. I'm pretty sure it's the same second chorus, bounced down, and I've got a chonking great big EQ on it. And the other thing to say about this is it's very heavily ridden arcs. And so it really swells. It's like the ocean. It's like it just swells. If I took away the automation, it just sounds like a flat sound. But it's this that you get with the automation, which is really, it's like just hopefully evocative of all the push and pull of the journey that you're kind of traveling on, So so that's that. And then we meet our sort of secondary character, who is none other than the mighty Brandi Carlile. And Brandi, I've been a fan of Brandi's for so many years, and her storytelling vocally is just kind of like unparalleled to me. And I really had a strong feeling that I wanted like another character to join the song to lift it up. And I'd written the song and recorded the second verse, but I called up Brandi, who I actually met because Brandi reached out to me about coming over to Joni Mitchell's house and playing with Joni Mitchell, which literally blew my mind. But Brandi kind of hosts these jam sessions at Joni's house, and I was invited to do that, so I met Brandi, and then, it was a couple of years later, I said, Brandi, I've got a song that I really think you could offer some wisdom to, And she agreed to record it. About 2 or 3 days later, it was an amazing turnaround. Incidentally, if anyone's in Los Angeles in October, I'm actually playing piano on the Joni Mitchell Hollywood Bowl shows. So I'll see you there. Thanks to Brandi. But here is Brandi. Now, since we're talking about her, where is she? Oh, here she is. Yeah.
My compass star, be my darkness, be my danger, be the strings of my guitar. Little blue, how I love you.
Oh, she's just beautiful. Isn't that amazing? And Brandi has, what does she have on her? Say it again, sorry.
Is her vocal stack the same?
Is her vocal stack the same? It's not dissimilar, but it's a whole different EQ for Brandi. Is this Brandi's EQ? Yeah. Oh no, that looks like an effect EQ. Trying to figure out where the root of that is. It might even be baked into the stem. Oh, here it is. I think this is potentially the EQ. Yeah, oh no, it is that one. Okay. Yeah, so Brandi she has a whole different kind of tonality to me. Because my voice is naturally quite mellow, my voice ends up often needing some high-end help on a mic. Brandi is quite bright tone. So in a sense, like as you can see, all I've done here is just tame it a little bit. And yeah, some of the mids. And again, Ben Bloomberg over here is like master of vocal EQ, and he was so helpful here. And the exciter, once again, the exciter is so helpful. What the exciter does is just like brightens in a distortion native way. It's almost like it adds like a tape saturation brightness to the sound in the frequency band that you dictate. So I've dictated 8.7K and up, which is pretty high, and it's distorting this amount. And so yeah, just as bright. I can't overestimate neutron as a vocal EQ. It's so good, literally, so good. So that's that. And then the second verse, things are sort of kicking off. So there are a few more vocals involved here too. So you may have heard Lennon here. Here's Lennon has made her appearance here. Isn't that lovely? Lennon Stella, that is. She's a very beloved singer to me. And again, one of the things that voices can do that nothing else can quite do is glide, you know? So rather than going, okay, I want my BVs to go, it can go, and that emotion is very specific, and especially when it's layered on top of itself multiple times, it really carves it's a really emotional way of being harmony, to be a voice. So yeah, what you heard here is when on strings on my guitars, you hear this sort of like all this kind of stuff, and those approaches, those all that stuff, it goes a long way. And I'll play the rest of the BVs of this verse. It goes like this. I thought I'd allow myself just a little bit of spice there. So I put the gear up and then back down quickly. I thought I might get away with that one. And that's just one of those things where you take a chord, and then every note in this chord is replaced by the note directly on either side of the note. So this is replaced by this is replaced by this, and this is replaced by this. So you get, you know what I mean? So it's a good tip. Good tip. There's a home that leads me back to you. That kind of thing, And the thing with chords and harmony, which I know is not what this masterclass is about, is what we call voice leading, where every voice has a kind of pathway that makes sense. So if it was like, that's a bit more angular, still works, but this chord is illegal in most countries. Why, you ask? Because it has an E flat and a D and an E in it. Can't do that, or so they say, but you actually can. Because of the strength of the voice leading. Everything goes in a direction. So yeah. So that's what I did just there. I thought, just a little bit of colour, a little bit of spice. Forgive me.
Do you ever get scared to break the rules per se or warp expectations?
Yeah. The question for those who didn't hear and for watching the stream or something in the other rooms is am I ever afraid to break the rules? That's the question, right? Yeah, in different ways, as a human, in different ways. But I would say that, in music, every single rule is arbitrary. That's the first thing to say. It's all made up. You just do whatever you want at all times. Literally, I'm being serious. Every rule is arbitrary. You can do whatever you want. With that said, there are forces that create strong motion and maybe weaker motion. Weak motion is fine. If you want to do weak motion, that's fine. But what you can study and deepen your understanding of is what kind of motion or I say motion because of harmony, but just choices in general, feel good to you. If something feels good to you, then it is literally right. That's it. It's up to you. You're the creator of the song, no one else, right? So you decide if it's good or bad. There's no such thing. There's no objectively good or bad choices in music at all. With that said, you can be very discerning about your choices based on really, really learning what you like. It's like the biggest thing you can ever learn is what you respond to. And that's not to say that you should only do what you like, because sometimes doing things that you don't like or you respond to in a strange way can be deeply interesting and challenging to you and others. But understanding your compass, that is the whole rule book. That's your rule book. And the only rules are, understand what you like and don't like, and then do what feels right for the thing that you're making, you know? And you can even break those if you want. But I find those two things helpful to remember. But when it comes to harmony, I mean, literally you do anything, you know? Every single note works with every single other note, if you just want it to. And so, there's always a way you can solve a problem. And even though this chord I would have got thrown out of school for using that, I like it. I think it sounds good. And there are reasons why, from my own study, and I say study not from teachers per se, but study of my reactions to things and how things work that I care about, I know I can justify this decision emotionally because I know that it feels resolved at the end, and that's cool. But that's the study. The study is not of trying to be good all the time or whatever. It's just that feel right, and you can ask yourself if something feels right in many areas of your life, not just music too. I have a friend who asks this part of himself. It's like it lives here. It's like, what do you think? Yeah, you know, about what do I order on the menu, or should I move to Melbourne, or whatever decision you want. Yeah, you know, no. But you can kind of you can describe that however you wish. But there are so many ways to solve problems, and there is no such thing. I will say that going through educational systems for anyone who is remotely creative is usually a challenge. For me, it was definitely a challenge. There's a lot of people who were sort of frustrated with my lack of compliance. And I was confusing as a student. I wasn't a very good student. I was a very good learner if I cared about the thing I was learning about. But I wasn't a great student per se because I would reject things that I didn't believe in, even if it was like, this is the truth. It's like, but it's not though. It's not. Is it though? No, it's not. And so, but it's that age-old thing. It's like, you know, education is what others do to you, but learning is what you must always do for yourself, no matter who you are or what you're learning. And that's not to say education is not of huge value. You can learn from others so many things, and I mean, everything is learned from others ultimately, but I think everything is, your relationship with every piece of learning that you do is done within yourself. So you must always be an active learner. And, you know, for example, with mixing and production, I never had a teacher for mixing and production, but I did have, my teachers were all the records I listened to and all the things I cared about and the forces that I recognized enjoying, some of them more consciously than others. And when you start making things, you discover who you are. I respond to this. Oh, okay, you know. And so that can be immensely freeing. I think, had the deep privilege of an incredible mum who is also pretty unconventional as a thinker, but deeply liberating. And her big superpower for me as a kid, one of them was just giving me space to be me, to be Jacob. And that is ever changing. But there was always a sense of no matter what happened at school or happened, and then eventually that became in the music industry and all this, everything's just all these different structures you end up going in. They all have usually good intentions and often things that don't really work and problematic figure, whatever. But having a mum to be yeah, but what do you want to say was really important for me. And I think so much of my, you could say lack of worry about, God, what happens if I play a note that's not, what's going to happen? It's oh, that's okay, you know. And then there are some days where I do get worried. I think, I don't want to, you know, I mean, not about chords, but about other things, you know. I think I don't want to upset people with this. But then there's also a part of me that quite enjoys upsetting people. So there's always two sides to everything. But again, it's about getting to know your interior, your own personal philosophical geography, and being I'm comfortable. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. And I will say that performing live taught me so much about this kind of courage, because live, there's no. I mean, I remember I used to do things like this when I was small, and I used to get really pretty worried beforehand. I think, oh no, hello, please like me, you know, one of those things. And then you sort of realize that one of the biggest gifts you can give, I think, as a being, you could say a public person or any person really is just to be really you. And if you're able to be comfortable with that and sort of learn, you can say study it or learn it in those kinds of environments, you build also a lot of faith with yourself. And so in live shows, I mean, the audience choir is an example of something that came, I didn't plan it, it was an accident. It sort of came by itself. But I'd like the thing that happened was I got to the end of a song and I'd been getting different sections of the audience looping things. I think I was doing Blackbird, which is a great song. And at the end of the song, I sort of got people going like, singing in the dead of night, singing in the dead of night, singing in the dead of night, and then some singing in the dead of night, singing in the singing in the singing in the dead of singing in the dead of night, 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 singing in the dead of night. And there I was with F majors going at me, and I thought, hang on. And it was like, what? It was crazy. You can stop there. And I just had this idea. It was like, what if I've got 3 notes here. What if I move them up and down? So I did. And it was this amazing, like, life-changing moment for me when this happened. It was like, hang on, this is a whole front. This is back in 2019. It's a whole frontier that I didn't even know was possible. But you always know more than you think you know. So I'm tapping into what people didn't know they knew, but they do know, which is how to move inside chords. Anyone who's ever heard music has some amount of an intuition, some more than others, but in general, audiences tend to, they love being involved and trust being given, being placed upon them. But then it's also, for me, it's just incredibly fun and rewarding to do that. But that came from a willingness to be like, what happens if I just, and that process of being willing to step outside, in this case, the white circular rug, is a really important part of life. And I think I've learned so much from music in life, and sometimes I'll come up against something in life that I'm unsure or uncertain about, and then I'll remember that I've done that learning in music, and I can transpose the learning into life, So even with decisions, I get pretty like serious decision fatigue or decision, like even if it's just like what do I order on the menu, I'm just like, be this or this, I don't know, whatever. And then I remember that if I were on stage, and and then someone's phone went, then I wouldn't hesitate in changing the chord. So I know the feeling of not being afraid to take the risk in music. So, and I've practiced that for me. It's taken practice. It's taken 10 years of playing shows and 10 years of making records and stuff. But now, I have a qualification to take a risk in one area of my life that I can put in another area. And then when it's like, what do I want to order, or way less trivial decisions, it could be like, I do know the feeling of there not being resistance to a decision, because that's a feeling I've experienced before, and because I've experienced it before, it's like all the things that are unhelpful can just fall away, and sometimes that's really helpful. I know that's a bit of a long answer, but it's something I think a great deal about, and and I think music is such an amazing teacher in so many ways. But one of the biggest ways for me is recognizing, again, how many of the forces that you find in music and navigating the decisions of it that can directly impact and help you as a creator, as a human, but also those who listen to your music. And you can sense like an inner permission to take a risk. You can sense that. It can make you laugh, or it can make you uncertain, or it can make you challenge yourself a bit. And you can sense when something is willing to be itself and not change. And to me, some of my favorite music in the world is that. It's so itself and was unwilling to change. And I'm always just so relieved when I listen to that music. Thank you for not changing, for just being, even if I don't like it, it's like, gosh, that's weird, but thank goodness that exists, And it's not just trying to bend into being something that's similar to it or something that's more appropriate with it, because nothing's going to move forward if you only make those things. So that granted me a lot of courage to remember the value in stating things as you see them, not as other people want you to see them. No one has that right to say, don't see it the way you see it. You already see it the way you see it, so just explain that. And a lot of these tools that I'm explaining are kind of manifestations of my own personal journey to that, to uncovering what it is that interests me. and that delights me and that surprises me, and then embedding those things within songs and then sharing them. And then those forces, however many of those forces end up being received, and there's a whole number of reasons why some forces may or may not be received by anyone. That's outside my control. But what's within my control are the forces at play within the process. Some of them are within my control. And so stating things as I see them always ends up feeling like the most sensible, responsible, and helpful thing I can do for people, you know.
How do you know when to stop journeying, especially from the context of a song you're working on it, you're getting ideas, and it's like spilling out of you. How do you know when the journey's about to end for that specific piece?
How do I know when to stop the journey of a song? Yeah. Should we transition to a Q&A now? This feels like what we want to do. I think there are microphones around for people for Q&As. I'll answer your question as we get going on that. But yeah, it's a funny thing. If I didn't have to finish music, it would ultimately never be finished, because you can continuously tweak things forever and ever. Amen. It's just like, oh, is that reverb? It was probably 1.3 dB, no, 1.2 dB too loud. Oh, just what if that's slightly out of tune? Oh, you know, there's a threshold that you pass, and once you pass it, things get worse. Even though they're getting better, they're getting worse. Then there's this funny thing where, you know, it's like the thing of people aren't actually moved by competence at all. Competence is one of the least moving things in the world. You're moved by something being resonant and clear. And there's an amount of kind of, you could say, competence that's necessary to get something to be clear. And then there's an amount of superfluous competence, which is just whittling away all the life in it, you know? And so I've definitely been guilty of that in the past, just being like, I could make it slightly, and it's partly because I've exercised so many of the tools that, so I'm aware of so many things. Like, I'm aware that the F sharp could be 0.2 dB quieter, and the chord would be slightly, but you know. And then there's nothing more frustrating and disempowering in a sense than working for 2 days, making a demo sound better, and then you listen to it, and it's just like, that's just not as good as the demo. Yeah, I'm sure many of you have been there. And so it's such a funny thing to try and get right, because you can't just not improve anything ever. But at the same time, you have to, again, it's like trust your friend, trust your gut, and be like, does this feel like itself? Would making it better make it more like itself? If not, then it's itself enough. You don't have to keep on making it better. Better's made up anyway. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Have we got microphones at the ready for questions? We'll take a question from you, sir, over there.
Hi, thank you. On that note,
Yeah.
Would you ever consider making a live album?
Yeah, I would, in fact. I've made one before, and it was a live piano ballads album in 2022. Because in 2022, in amongst all this audience choir madness that I spoke about before, I set myself a challenge, which was every show I would play a song that I'd never played before, and a different song for every show. And I did 91 gigs that year with the band, and so I did 91 different piano ballads. And it was really challenging and fun to do that. And so I put my favorite 11 of those onto an album called Piano Ballads 2022 or something. So I did do that. However, I think that there are collaborative live albums to be made in the next few years for me. I don't know what form they'll take yet, but I'd love to explore that for sure. Yeah. Let's see.
Sorry.
Who's got the question?
Me? Here.
What's up? Sorry. I'm going to say hi.
Earlier, I was curious about how do you decide which instrument to pick? I feel like half the time I'm just going through sounds. And then
I know that feeling.
Do you just pick one and then you just leave it for that? Or I'm curious what the process.
Yeah, don't necessarily have a method or a theory, but I definitely have my favorites. Again, it's like I said to the gentleman before, it's like I'm a creature of habit. So the sub bass in this song is a sound called basement bass. And it's just like a Logic preset. It's just basically a sine wave. And I've used that for 20 years. I just think it's great. I mean, it's sine wave. You don't need anything more than that. So I don't necessarily think that you need new sounds to be interesting. There are definitely times where fresh options coming in can be really beneficial. But I'm also totally guilty of and delighted by just, oh, that one sounds good, because that's also part of the process. And a time limit, yeah. Sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes you really dig for hours, and then it's worth it because you find the ultimate sound. But usually, something that's approximately the thing you want to get to is, again, it's sometimes more interesting than exactly the right sound. It's kind of go back to what I was saying to you. It's like the best possible option is not necessarily the most interesting. So you have to control yourself at times to be like, it's fine. Leave it alone. It's like Jacob slaps his own hand, sort of vibe. Many a time, yeah. Who's next? Yeah, let's take a question from just down here. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You said you never had teachers for mixing and production, right? But what was the way of learning for you? What was the sources that you were using when you were learning?
Yeah, well, mostly it was trial and error. It was like, try this. And I like, my first music experiments were not great. Like I didn't come out of the gate being like, at all. I just did, it's like the same as anyone. You start with basic stuff. You kind of deepen the resolution of your craft until you feel like, I talk about this a lot. I'll give you like a two-minute demonstration of this idea of resolution because I think about it a lot. And I don't mean resolution like, I mean resolution like 8-bit, 16-bit, 24-bit, like how many pixels in your screen. Because when you're a child, you sit down. This is a good exercise for learning anything, including mixing production. First thing you do when you sit down at the piano when you're a kid is you do this. Which is really important because that is like, all the stuff is there. And now you've made a start. So now you can just whittle away the things to make them slightly higher resolution. So you realize, okay, well, sound or no sound, that's an option. Cool. Then there's high and low. No, that's option. There's more options too. There's thin and thick. There's options. Okay. So now I've like acquired a bunch of interesting tools and ideas. There's loud and quiet. So that's cool. Those forces are incredibly important to understand, and it takes very little to understand them. Just takes like being willing to try something out, basically. And then, like a good example is I always think of is stride piano. Like. This whole thing. That thing. If you sit down and pretend you're a stride piano player, that is a lot. That's a lot of the thing. You basically got there. Now you just need to like slightly refine. And maybe instead of you could do, so. But like you don't think much about where your hand's going. You sort of aim for things. And it's not perfect, but the process of doing something and then deepening the resolution, that to me feels like how learning works for me. And that's a pianistic explanation. But in terms of mixing production, sound or no sound. Okay, I'll record a sound. And then once you figure that out, it's like, oh, you can actually, but just you open up the EQ thing. Oh, I can actually make this sound like high endy or low endy. And then suddenly that option's available to you. And I remember the day I discovered panning. Whoa, left and right? Are you crazy? And so I had all these mono songs, and I was like, And then, so I remember the first time I discovered panning, everything was hard pan. It's like the Beatles in the 60s, drums, lead vocal, and that's like the simplest version of the axis. And then you realize, okay, some things can be panned slightly, or a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, and then you can have a mixture of things that are panned. Some things can be EQ'd slightly. You don't have to be like, or it can be like a little bit behind. So the more you do things, the closer you get to understanding what you really want. And it's like who your teachers is the music you like. That's your teachers. You listen to things, and you kind of like figure them out. You think, well, what's going on there? Why do I feel good? Oh, it's because of the time. I feel good because of the time. And I would say that some of my musical teachers, and most of my musical teachers were in my life between about 16 and 19 years old. And I studied sort of jazz piano. That was like the main thing I studied. When I was studying jazz piano, I did like 2 years out of a 4-year degree as a jazz pianist in London at the Royal Academy of Music. And it was good. It was good fun. But my favorite teacher, his name is Barak Shmuel, he didn't teach jazz, he taught like rhythm. And so I would like skip jazz classes to go to all his rhythm classes. I went to every single one of his rhythm classes for all 4 years of students in my first year. And I was just like absolutely obsessed with his ideas. And I say rhythm, but he hit me to like the harmonic series, just intonation, negative harmony, like swing percentages, ratios, music from all over Africa, South America, funky. He's just an insane guy. And so, like when I latched on something I liked, like you pull it. But a lot of the principles he said and taught me, it's like he opened my ears to them. And a lot of the greatest lessons were he'd be like, "Come with me to a gig. I'm going to take you to a batar, like a Cuban batar night, and I want you to watch the third guy." And the third guy would be like doing the same thing for the whole night, and then suddenly he'd do something different, and he'd be like, "You see, it's like those kinds of lessons were incredible because they're practical lessons. You don't need formal teachers to give you these principles. What sometimes those people can do is they can refine those principles for you and with you. So like learning about the pentatonic scale or learning about modes and things like this. Like I'd kind of figured them out before I was told what the names were, intuitively an amount. But learning what the names of them were it was kind of interesting. It was helpful to learn things like that. And then I would like break stuff. I would just be like, hang on, if you've got Lydian, why should you stop? Why don't you just keep going forever? And then I came up with this like super ultra hyper mega meta Lydian idea of like it's like a scale is a spectrum instead of a scale, which I actually think goes for a lot of life as well. Rather than like labeling one thing or another thing, you just think, well, it's all a spectrum, and you find yourself on it wherever you want, and it can change. So I kind of like discarded a lot of the ideas that I was receiving in terms of scales, but I wouldn't have been able to discard them had I not learned them to a point. Yeah, so it was a process I think that I went through of absorbing things that I was interested in and wasn't interested in, and the filter system that goes about by exercising things you like in your playing, in your composing, your writing and arranging, whatever. But the production mixer thing was always like my own secret world. I never really told anyone about it. I was like, I would go and play and be a good jazzer and stuff, and then I'd come in and be like, right, like let's get those timpanis out again, and like, what if I mixed it up with a vibraphone thing and I put just banjo and dubstep, and it's like you just try and make something that's interesting. And I kept doing that, and then I started to make videos of those things and share them, and then people started to be like, hang on, that's really weird and interesting. And then I was really excited, and then I ran away from college and pursued my cathedral, which I'm still living in, or still building. But the process, I guess, of doing it, it really was about doing it often and being determined that there was always a way you can get the thing you want. Even if you have no idea what you're doing, there's still a way of getting it. And I would do all sorts of ridiculous things when I didn't. Like I remember before I learned about sidechain compression. Does anyone here know about sidechain compression? It's like this thing. It's like I love that sound, but I didn't realize you could change the threshold on a compressor. So I put like 11 compressors, all with a really high threshold. So they would add up and be like, and I'd be like pretty frustrated. But I did an arrangement of a song called "Close to You" back in like 2014, 10 years ago, and that one goes like. And if you go in the session, it's just like 11 compressors. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew there must be a way. And sometimes I go on YouTube and be like, how to make blah 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 blah. Yeah. But a lot of my solutions to things are they're rather unconventional and like probably like ill-advised. But I think, but potentially the attitude is advised, which is just believe that you can always things become possible when you start doing them. You can't wait for things to be possible before you do them. You have to just start, and it will just kind of do. If you're determined enough and trust that there's something to be found, it's like it just happens. And often you end up somewhere that you didn't think you wanted to go to, or something that was new to you, whatever. But that process is as meaningful, if not more, than getting to the place that you thought you wanted to go to. And the last 10 years of my musical life, I couldn't have planned it if I'd tried. There's no way. The audience choir, I couldn't have planned that. I couldn't have planned In My Room or the one-man show or the band tour or I Harm You or any of these things. They just kind of happen if you're just like, I'm sure there's a way I can, there must be it's like doing this, but in your life. You're like, and your greatest ally there is not how much information you know or how qualified you are. It's your friend. It's your, and that muscle is very, very worth building up. And you need no qualifications to begin listening to that voice. And some of the most qualified people make the least interesting stuff. It's just as simple as that. And some of the least qualified, skilled people have the most interesting stories to tell. And so there's no excuses to wait until you're qualified enough to start doing anything, whether it's production or music of any kind or anything, because your voice is as valuable as anybody else, no matter how qualified they are. And that's the amazing thing about 2024 and beyond is we're in this world where there's just there's as few rules as there's ever been. You literally can do whatever you want. Whatever interests you, you do that. And you do it well, do it really well, lean into it, understand it, explore it. Whatever it is, explore it. Just go and explore it because you just don't know what you're going to find, but you won't find anything if you stand still. you have to start moving in a direction. And that's not to say that there's a big rush, because there isn't a big rush. You can take as much time as you'd like, but the process of study is a weird word to use, because it's not really study. It's experiment, and it's determination, and it's curiosity, probably most of all. Like, what if I just, it all starts with that. It all starts with, and the more time you spend refining those things, the more, kind of like the deeper your resolution becomes, and then the higher the fidelity is with which you're able to express things that you feel, and that's a delightful principle to chase. Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's take a question from the very back. So somebody at the very right. You decide.
Hi. Oh no, I lied. Oh yes, I'm hi.
Oh hello.
Hello.
What's up?
Okay. So earlier you talked about how when you start creating a piece that you just jot everything down, right? And then later you can now remove that stuff. That later part, removing that stuff. What is your process in doing that?
Yeah.
Become from a short scale of like 12 or 13 tracks, it's kind of easier, but over 600 tracks, when you have like 30, 40 tracks that are deleted, like how do you do that?
Yeah. Oh, it can be so hard to mute tracks. You're like, I don't want to mute you. I'm sorry. Oh, agony. But I will say, like, I don't think about these 600 tracks individually. I think about them as kind of collective. So all these tracks you see right now, that's whatever it is, 20 tracks, or 25. And that's like BVs. So that's like kind of one, I wouldn't say one track because it's 25 tracks, but it's one like strand. And so you can kind of organize. And Logic has done this amazing thing now where you can group groups. You know about this. You can bus other bus. Before this, I was, as I say, up shit creek without a paddle. But now, see, this is a folder that exists inside another folder, which is called BGV. And this contains my BV, choir, audience choir, Lennon, bass vocals, like responses, the Aeolians, who I actually haven't spoken about, but they're an incredible choir from Huntsville, Alabama, who I used at the end here. That's 25 undergrad students from Oakwood University. Crazy sound. Isn't that crazy? They are so special. The last song I'm just falling for is called World Oh World, and that's the choir that sings World Oh World. I think the greatest choir on the face of the earth as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I digress. Pocketing, there's another backing vocal stamp. So all these are all groups of stacks. There's another 30 or so tracks. But I grouped them sort of in orders. So BGV becomes one strand of many other strands. There's kind of like percussive elements, there's bass elements, there's vocal elements, there's sound effects elements, and all these things end up like participating in the overall picture. But when it comes to losing things and adding things, it can sometimes help at a certain point to group the things you're adding into sections and then prioritize within each section what's necessary. Because it might be that you try 3 or 4 different keyboard ideas, and one of them is the best one, but you don't have to mute all the keyboard groups. You can just mute the one that you can solo the one that speaks most to you, and then the rest can sort of go by the wayside. But it's harder when it's like, I want to delete a whole section. Like, I don't think we need verse 3. Like, oh, that's so hard. But I'll splice it out the session and paste it at the end, so I can always get it back if I want to. And also, like, save as is the king, isn't it? We all know that. But you can't. I used to do everything in one session only. When I did in my room, it was just like everything was just. It was like down the line, full stop. And everything was done in that one session. All the renditions were just, it was just difficult. And then, as I've grown older, I've learned I've sort of reaped the benefits of like different revisions of sessions. So you can always save as, and you always have the old version to go back on. But I think it does help sometimes to be quite merciless and be like, unless I absolutely think this is so crucial, I must remove it. It's definitely like an interesting psychology. It's not always the right one, but yeah, just kind of being like what ultimately, like circling all the words that you think are necessary for the story of the song, and then literally deleting all the other words and starting again. That's like a drastic example, or yeah. So I think you have to keep on asking yourself, like, does this feel like it's improving things, and does it feel like it's distracting from things? And you can't always tell when you're working on something. So sometimes, like, go and play it in the car is such a good one, or playing it to a friend, or playing it through your phone, or changing the key. Like, that's one thing I do a lot. Is like this thing Varispeed up here. Varispeed is so helpful. Varispeed just changes the speed of your song. So, for example, we've just gone up 2.6 semitones. And what can I do now? Well, I can evaluate if things actually sound good. Right, I just released that on TikTok, and I'm a huge star. But the thing that happens there is that you remove the sort of previous, like your expectations and your preconceptions about the harmony, and just that your familiarity with it. It's like I often go in between semitones, or again, the cross-terrain idea, because if I just put it up to F sharp, then I know F sharp, I know it like the back of my hand. But if I go up to then I have I have fewer reference points, and I can hear it more like it's fresh. So sometimes that can help you just decide that works. That I've done that since I was like 16. I don't know why, but I really love that process of just being like, put it in the key that doesn't exist, then evaluate it, then put it back to the original key, and then make drastic decisions based off of that. Yeah, I guess I'd say that. I hope that helps. Where are the microphones? Oh, we got to wind up. Oh, yeah, we really do have to wind up. Maybe we'll take one more really quick question, and then we can call it a day. Let's go over here.
Hi, Jacob.
Hello.
Thank you so much for chatting with us today. I love top-line melody songwriting, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your process or philosophy of how you come up with melodies and lyrics. Do you start with a bed of chords or a key, or do you come up with a concept or a story that you really want to tell?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a big question to be the last one that I have to rush the answer of. I'll say there was a lesson that was taught to me, a melody lesson that was taught to me by a man named Mike Walker when I was about 17. And he's an amazing jazz guitar player. And I said, Mike, how do you write good melody? And he said, play me a melody. So I played him a melody of some scrotty thing that went do-do-do-do-do, and there wasn't really a form, there was just like a few notes and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, okay. And he said, now sing me a melody. So I sang a melody, and it had a little bit more form, a little bit more rhyme, structure, still a bit rambly. And then he said, now imagine there's a girl who's singing a melody in your ear, and then sing the melody back that you imagine hearing. I thought, oh. And then I sang this melody that had all this like rhyme and reason and structure, and like it was simple, and And he was like, that's the end of the lesson. That's what he said. I loved that, because it's like this process of getting out of your own way and following. Again, it's like the thing that you most want to hear, not the thing you think others most want to hear, or the thing that you feel will be most appropriate to contribute, but the thing that you want to hear, you want to hear it. And all the best melodies come from speech, in a sense. And the study of like ebonics and languages, like a deep study. It's the idea of phrasing. Like my European language of English has this kind of like emphasis is about dynamics and intonation. So melody goes and there's an amount of inner logic that your melody needs to have to sort of make a sort of syntactical sense in a certain kind of a way. Like if it's like there's like up and down, answer, question, answer. So sometimes those things can be helpful to think about, but normally, yeah, to create a bed of sound of some kind, or like a is a great example, but something that's constant that I can push against can be helpful. If I try and write melody in a vacuum, that's hard. But if I write a melody over this, and then I'm off. Because I have something to push against. And so that can be helpful, the idea of counterpoint. And not like, not that kind of counterpoint, but like one thing and another thing, and the spark that's created when they rub together. It's like friction. Without friction, there's no movement. It's like a wheel on the ground. You need friction to make a movement. So you need to push. You need something to push against. For me, anyway. Otherwise, I just, like, my mind goes faster and faster and faster, and there's no form, and then I freak out and stop, you know? So it's like having something that holds me to myself, where I can be like, okay, I'm gonna push against this, and oh, there it is, and then you follow the movement. That for me can be helpful. I usually do lyrics later than melody, though I've recently become more interested in doing lyrics first because it's newer to me, and I've recently been enjoying that as a challenge. So again, there's not one way at all, but yeah, maybe some things within that can help. Cool. I honestly would love to keep going forever, but we have reached the end of our time here in the New York Public Library. Is there? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for coming and for asking such lovely questions and for listening to my various ramblings. Is there time for me to play a song? And you can say no, powers that be. There is. Okay, I might just do a quick song and then we really will stop, okay?
You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. You'd feel like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. And long lost love has arrived. And I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes. Pardon the way that I stare. There's nothing else to compare. The sight of you makes me weak. There aren't the words left to speak. So if you feel how I feel, please let me know that it's real. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off love has arrived. I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes.